You know, when we talk about God, the conversation usually turns to faith. But is that the only way to think about it? For centuries, some of the smartest people around have argued that reason and evidence, things we can literally see and measure in the world, might also point toward a creator. So today, we're diving into that exact idea. Can logic actually lead to God? And that right there is the big question, isn't it? On one hand, you've got faith, which is belief without needing hard proof. And on the other, you've got science and reason, which demand evidence. But what if they're not totally separate? What if they can work together? This question has been at the center of huge debates for a long, long time. And today, we're going to look at two really different ways people have tried to answer it. All right, let's start by jumping in a time machine. We're going way back to the 13th century to look at the work of one of the most influential thinkers on this subject, Thomas Aquinas. His whole approach was about looking at the world we can see, the visible effects, and asking a simple question: what kind of invisible cause could possibly explain all this? Aquinas' really big idea was that our own minds, our own ability to reason, could get us there. He believed that if you just looked carefully at the natural world, you could connect the dots. You didn't need a miracle or a special vision. The evidence, in a way, was hiding in plain sight. So this way of thinking has a name: natural theology. And the idea behind it is actually super simple. Think about it like this. You're looking out at the horizon and you see a big plume of smoke. Now, you can't see any flames, but your brain immediately tells you, hey, there's got to be a fire, right? You infer the invisible cause, the fire, from the visible effect, the smoke. Aquinas just took that exact same logic and applied it to the whole universe. He laid all this out in what we now call his 5 ways. Each one starts with something really basic that we can all observe. Let's just take the first cause. We see that everything has a cause, right? Your chair was caused by a factory, the factory was caused by builders, and so on. Aquinas argued that you can't have an infinite chain of causes going back forever. At some point, there must have been an original cause that wasn't caused by anything else. And he used that same kind of reasoning for everything from motion to the order we see in nature, always tracing it back to one ultimate source. Okay, now let's hit the fast-forward button and jump ahead about 700 years. Because in the 1950s, a totally new kind of visible effect showed up, one that created a brand new mystery for science to solve. And it was found in the code of life itself. So right there in Cambridge, the world of biology was being turned upside down. When Watson and Crick figured out the structure of DNA, they didn't just find a molecule. They found something that looked, for all the world, like a language, a 4-letter chemical alphabet that writes the instruction manual for every living thing on Earth. And hey, this wasn't just some loose comparison. Francis Crick himself, one of the guys who discovered it, made this connection explicit. He realized the sequence of chemicals wasn't just a random jumble. It was functioning just like letters in a book, or, even more amazingly, like digital ones and zeros in a computer program. Which leads to the million-dollar question: where did this code come from? Okay, to get our heads around this, philosopher Stephen Meyer uses this fantastic analogy. Picture some magnetic letters on your refrigerator door. The laws of magnetism explain why the letters stick to the metal. No mystery there. But magnetism has absolutely nothing to say about why the letters spell out a message like, "I love Daddy." That message is something extra. It's information. The argument is that the exact same thing is happening with DNA. Chemistry explains how the chemical letters bond the DNA strand, sure, but it doesn't explain why they're arranged in the specific sequence needed to build a protein. You see? The physics and chemistry are just the paper and ink. They aren't the story itself. So you can see where this is going, right? The discovery of this non-physical thing, this information, at the very heart of biology, got some people thinking, maybe this points back to a mind. And this is how we get a really modern twist on the argument for design, one that's built on computer science and information theory. The key phrase you gotta know here is specified information. This isn't just about something being complex. I mean, a random string of letters is complex, but it's meaningless. A line from a Shakespeare play, though, is both complex and specified. It does something. It conveys meaning. And here's the absolute core of the argument. In every other area of our lives, whether it's a book or a computer program or a radio signal, when we find specified information, it always, always, always comes from a mind. So the question is, why would biology be the one exception? So here's how the logic breaks down. First, you start with the fact that all life depends on this incredible amount of specified digital information stored in DNA.
Second, the argument goes that physics and chemistry alone can't explain where that information came from. Third, the only cause we've ever observed that can produce this kind of information is, well, intelligence. So the conclusion they draw is that an intelligent cause is simply the best explanation for the information we find at the foundation of life.
Now, as you can probably guess, this did not stay a quiet, polite academic debate for long. The moment you start suggesting that a mind or an intelligence might be involved in the origin of life, well, you're stepping on some pretty serious landmines. And boom, suddenly this wasn't just an academic idea anymore. It became a full-blown culture war. And the timing was just explosive. This was all happening just as the new atheist movement, led by people like Richard Dawkins, was really taking off. You had the publication of a pro-intelligence design paper in 2004 that caused a massive uproar, a huge court case over teaching it in schools in Dover, Pennsylvania in 2005, and then the God delusion came out. It all just collided into this perfect storm, becoming one of the biggest science versus religion showdowns of our time. So let's just pull back and look at the big picture. What we've seen are two really different arguments that, weirdly enough, follow the exact same pattern. You have Aquinas in the 13th century looking at the whole cosmos, its existence, its motion, and reasoning his way back to a first cause. Then, hundreds of years later, you have Meyer looking at the tiny digital code inside a single molecule and reasoning his way back to an intelligent cause. They both start with a visible effect and try to infer an invisible cause, but their evidence comes from totally opposite ends of the scale of reality. And that leaves us right here, with a very modern version of a very ancient question. Is this beautiful, intricate code of life the signature of a mind? Is it something that known physical processes can create on their own? Or is it pointing towards something new about the universe, a physical process that we just haven't discovered yet? That's the question at the very heart of this modern debate. And whatever the answer is, it's going to have some pretty profound things to say about who we are and where we came from.